Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. It's Eddie Campos with RE/MAX Preferred Associates, and this is a special coffee with Eddie. My guests today are John Mangas, broker, owner, and partner with RE/MAX Preferred Associates, Megan Foos, CEO of Northwest Ohio Realtors, and the one and only Alan.tinney with Waterford Bank. And today we wanted to have a conversation, just a free conversation, to talk about where we've seen 2020 going and where we foresee things to go in the future with 2021. And Megan, I guess I'd start with you. What did you see happening in 2020 when it was March 13th and everything started to shut down?
Well, we'll kind of forget that part of it, but I think, we saw 2 months where things really, I think people were still just trying to figure out what we can do. How does this work? If sellers were still interested in selling, if buyers still wanted to go through property. So we saw really, luckily March had a strong, probably March and April really had a strong enough pipeline that we didn't see those numbers completely bottom out. Like, some states like a Michigan who couldn't even do transactions, but we definitely saw numbers go down. And then, probably towards June, and then we saw them drastically take a rather large jump. And, as of the end of October, year-to-date numbers, as you can see right there, compared to the same time last year, and Lucas and Upper Wood County, that's Rossford and Perrysburg, so part of our territory. Sure. But basically, our numbers from October 30th, 2020 are exactly where they were last year. And, even with listings being down to almost 9%, our sales are right at they were, which you can see obviously is the dramatic increase in average and median sales price. And looking at the pipeline that we've got going here into November and probably even through December, obviously depending what happens here in the next couple of weeks, I think you might see numbers end up actually ahead of where they were at the end of the year last year. And I think, barring nothing real drastic, that's going to continue right into 2021. That's
incredible. So, John, you and I talk a lot about what happens with the national situation, and Lawrence Yun is somebody that we follow a lot. I noticed today that his LinkedIn page, he put out this graphic. Did you see this yet?
I have not seen that yet.
If you look here, this is March 2020. Yep. Look at this dip.
Yep.
And where we were and where it's gone to. I think you have a unique perspective here, John, because you can also comment on what you see happening statewide because you're a board member with the Ohio Realtors Association, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Eddie. There was a lot of talk, earlier in the year when we were going into the pandemic that it was going to be a U-shaped recovery. Mm-hmm. And yet, what we're seeing here really looks more like a V-shaped recovery where, exactly. a rapid decline and a rapid rise back out of it. And that's really largely because of the demand that the millennials have placed on the marketplace, really pushing us in absorbing inventory or home sales as fast as they come on the market. And we're seeing that really in virtually every market across the state of Ohio, not just Toledo. In fact, arguably Columbus and Metro Columbus is one of the 5 hottest markets in the United States, which typically doesn't happen in the Midwest. Typically, those markets tend to be more coastal oriented. So I think what we're seeing in Toledo is really just a microcosm of what's going on across Ohio and across the United States, largely driven by the demands that the millennials have placed in the marketplace. There's more millennials now than there are baby boomers for the first time. And that's really driving the market, coupled with historically low interest rates.
Well, and according to this chart here, it looks like the rental vacancy rates are starting to rise in the city and people are starting to move out to the suburbs and places like that. So, which I think is only going to help increase sales.
To that point, I spoke with a realtor from sort of rural Oregon, as in the state of Oregon. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that she was telling me is, people from Portland or Seattle that are forced to work from home now have said, well, wait a minute, I can stop renting this $2,300 a month apartment and go buy something out in the country on a couple acres and work from home and be just fine. And I think, that's more than just a short-term coincidence, I think.
When rates are so low, it's so much, it's cheaper now almost to own than it is with some of our rental rates as well. So some of that's making sense as for that part of it too.
So Al, that's a good segue to you. What has interest rates done for 2020 and what do you foresee them doing for 2021?
As we all know, rates, during the pandemic, when it began back in March, that's when rates really started to plummet. We started to see people securing fixed rate mortgages below 3%, and that hasn't stopped for qualified borrowers. So at least in my shop, we're going to have a record year, the most volume and units that we've ever done as a team since 2010 when we first opened the mortgage shop in Waterford Bank. And purchase market then, it was delayed, as you were just both, or all three of you just mentioning. And what happened with us was we started the pre-approval process like we usually do, February or March. And when you all slowed down, well, all of a sudden those rates dropped into those twos, and we started refinancing. It seemed like everybody and their brother, and we were going, okay, look, we got to get this all done. We got to get it closed because a vaccine's going to come along and these rates are going to shoot right back up. We got to make these profits now while they're here. Well, rates have continued to stay in the twos again for qualified borrowers throughout the end of this year. We don't see them changing a whole lot from where they're at right now anytime soon. However, I think, at least according to the MBA and the information I have here, the Mortgage Bankers Association, they're talking about maybe a slight increase into the low threes next year, for fixed rates, for a 30-year fixed rate, for example, maybe in the 3.5% range for 2022. So it's all relative, obviously. Those are still amazing rates, but I don't think you're going to see interest rates fluctuating a whole lot from what we've seen all year. And the refinances still continue to be strong. Hopefully the purchases, as you both mentioned, and what I'm seeing here as well, that we have a nice year for the purchase business next year as well with these low rates.
Well, and when I look back at my first home purchase back in 1992 at somewhere around 13%, anything that's in that 3% range is still historically low.
And it's kind of funny when you talk about rates being in the 13% range back then, right? But it really, it's just an opportunity. And we talked about this earlier before we came on the call, for both buyers and sellers alike with these rates being at historically low levels.